Hello, everyone. Let me set up my. It's much better now. Hello, hello. Let me make sure that you can hear me. How can we make sure? Yeah, it's working. Okay, so let me wait for everybody to show up. And while you're waiting, let's talk about the latest updates in the world of immigration. Okay. Okay, so the first thing to share with you is that the government of Canada eventually, after a few months of delay, they updated the low-income cutoff requirements for immigration to Canada, and they increased the requirements for settlement funds by roughly speaking 3% based on the actual inflation rate. If you want to know about the table and the content of this increase, you can read my article on the subject. We updated our tables. The tables are important for people who want to immigrate to Canada under the express entry system, under the federal skilled worker class, and also for startup visa. And the table also is being used for sponsorship applications, especially if the person that you're sponsoring is not your parent or your spouse, even for parental sponsorship applications, because it's 30% above LICO. We can clearly find out what are the requirements under that program. So if you want to know more, I just posted the link on the chat box, but I will also post it below this video. You can read more about the updates to low income cutoff for immigration to Canada. The other great news is that the government of Canada decided to expand their SDS program. For those of you who are not familiar with SDS or Study Direct Stream, it's a program that tries to expedite processing the study permit applications. And in the past, it covered 7 countries that they could apply for an expedited study permit application. The requirements were different from the requirements of a regular study permit application. For example, you had to do IELTS test, which for a regular study permit is not necessary. Your IELTS score needed to be 6 or higher, or in other words, your language requirements was CLB 7 or Canada Language Benchmark 7. Which is IELTS 6. And then you had to purchase a GIC or Guaranteed Income Certificate from an approved financial institution to the amount of $10,000. You have to pay the first year tuition fee, and also you need to, of course, get your study permit at a designated learning institution, among other requirements. And then you submit the application, and the government tries to process your study permit application in about 2 to 3 weeks. And now in reality, the processing time could vary, but generally speaking, their effort is towards processing the applications in 3 weeks or less. And that program covers right now 14 countries instead of 7 countries. So the new 7 countries that are added to the list, they are all from Americas. So they are either from South America, Central America, or North America. Actually, not North. Yeah, we do have North America as well. So we have from Americas, they include these countries: Antigua and Barbuda, Brazil, Colombia, Costa Rica, Peru, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, and Trinidad and Tobago. So we have now 7 countries added to the list. If you want to know the complete list of countries that are covered by Study Direct Stream, are Antigua and Barbuda, Brazil, China, Colombia, Costa Rica, India, Morocco, Pakistan, Philippines, Peru, Senegal, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, and Trinidad and Tobago, and eventually Vietnam. So these are the 7 countries. If you want to know more about the program, this is the link. By the way, if you have any questions, you don't need to repeat your questions. Just ask them in the chat box and I will reach the questions and I will answer them one by one. So I just posted the link to the STS program. If you qualify for the STS program, your application will be processed faster. It doesn't mean that they will issue your study permit, but the processing time is quicker than the regular study permit application. If you are from any of those 14 countries, you may still apply on the regular programs. However, I do not recommend it because it is likely they will refuse your application. However, that's your choice. If you think you cannot go through the STS program and you are from one of those countries, and by the way, you need to be a resident of those countries, not a citizen of those countries. I also, last week, I published an article about renouncing permanent resident status because I received many questions about this. So I post this here. When you hold a permanent resident of Canada, as it is called, it is permanent unless you lose it or you renounce it. By losing it, it means an immigration officer decides that you do not meet the requirements of a permanent resident anymore, and then they will cancel your PR status. But you can also voluntarily do this. Now you may ask why on earth somebody will do it. Sometimes because you want a status in another country or you receive a job opportunity in another country. But one of the requirements is that you cannot be the permanent resident of Canada. In that situation, you can renounce your PR status. In other situations that we can think of, for example, you do not meet residency requirements, you know that applying for a PRTD means that they will refuse your request and they will cancel your PR, so you renounce it yourself. The processing fee is free. I have posted the documents that you need and everything else required for this program. If you're interested, read my article for details. But if we go back to the news, last week the government of Canada was very active in express entry. So they issued 4,500 invitations for Canadian experience class under express entry. The minimum score was 369, which was higher than the previous draw. In the previous draw, it was 357, but still it is a healthy CRS score. Many people have the opportunity to be selected, but unfortunately, they didn't cover federal skilled worker. They still persist on Canadian experience class only, nothing for federal skilled trades program or federal skilled worker unless you had invitation from a province. In fact, the government invited 627 PNP applicants one day before the express entry draw for Canadian experience class, and for that, the lowest score was 760 points, which is really good because, as you know, you could receive up to 600 points by receiving a PNP invitation for express entry. So this means that if we take away the 600 points, the lowest score could be, in fact, as low as 160 points. So still, if you have any opportunity to get an invitation from a province, for example, you have worked in a province, you have relatives in a province, depending on the provincial, of course, requirements, then give it a try. That could help you to boost your points and being selected by the government for under the express entry system. British Columbia invited 387 candidates in two PNP programs last week. So one of the programs was basically the regular skilled immigrant program and express entry BC. They invited 342, but they took it a further step further. They actually selected 6 different occupations, and among people who worked in those occupations, they invited a total of 45 people. They were still skilled immigrants and express entry BC, but this was a special draw. Again, if you want to know more about this piece of news, here is the link. Again, if you have any questions, please post your questions in the chat box. I will answer them. You don't need to repeat your questions, okay? So when I'm done with the news, I will get back to you. In the news, an interesting statistics came out, and the statistics is that the government of Canada realized that our population grew last year, Canadian population grew, but the main contributor to the growth of population was postgraduate work permit holders. So if you look at this, you will find out the piece of news. So it clearly shows how international students play an important role in the growth of population in Canada, in contribution to Canadian economy, and so on and so forth. So we have to look at these statistics as well. They are interesting. You can learn more about the patterns that are happening in Canada and how immigration is important to Canada, especially international students. That being said, also keep in mind that you can also consider studying in Canada, of course, if you meet the requirements. And if you do, then you can fill out our assessment form. We have an assessment form dedicated to study permit as well. Here is the link. Just click on the button for for study permit, fill out the form, and if you meet the requirements, our team will get in touch with you and we'll find out whether you can apply as a student or not. The other thing that, because many people ask me about the opening of the borders, so we see that recently Air Canada has called back some of the laid off employees to go back to work, and they are considering hiring. We have the same thing with other airlines like Delta Airlines, and that shows that the traveling will soon get back to normal. And this means that hopefully we will see that the Canadian borders will gradually, or hopefully even expedited, will open to people. I just posted the link to this piece of news. You can read it. This is a glimpse of hope for us to see that the borders will be open again, and hopefully the immigration process will go back to normal. And that's pretty much it about what is happening in the world of immigration in the past week. Just as a reminder, if you want to open a business in Canada, and with the help of opening that business, get a work permit like under IMPC 11 or IMPC 12, and or do other stuff. The good news is that the Ontario government decided to remove the residency requirements. This means starting from July 5th, 2021. If you want to establish a business in Ontario, you don't need a Canadian or a permanent resident of Canada to be on your board of business, on the board of the business director boards of business. I just posted the link here. I will also post the link below my video. You can find out more about that. Okay, now that I'm done with the reviewing of the news, I will go through your questions and try to answer them. Just as a reminder, I cannot offer immigration advice on a public forum. So the answers that I will offer to the questions will be very broad and generic, not necessarily related to your specific case. If you want official advice, you need to book an appointment with me, and then we can basically review your questions and answer them properly. So the question is that my knock code is 0125. Where is it in demand? Okay, so the simple answer is that I don't know because I have not memorized every single knock code. I even need to look it up. As you are probably you are aware that we have 500 different knock codes. Okay, so it's called other business service managers. So it could be, first of all, we don't have a specific, by federal government of Canada, we don't have a specific knock list to say we pick these. The only exception is federal skilled trades program, and they don't have they haven't picked a specific knock code. They have selected a series of knock codes to say that if you qualify for these and you have work experience in this, then you are a federal skill. You could potentially apply under federal skill trades. But with the provinces, yes, they pinpoint certain knock codes and they select people based on them every now and again. And you just need to look at the list of provincial websites and see which one of them will offer anything for you if they do. I have let me find my article because it's a relatively old article. Okay, I have to type in provincial. Yeah, here it is. So I post this link in the chat box. You can click on that, and then I have a link to every single province. And you can actually open the provincial website and then look at them and then decide if any of those provinces fit your experience and your expertise, and maybe there is an opportunity sitting somewhere for you. So the next question, so the first one was by Mazlawali, sorry. And the second one is by Zaidi. So Zaidi says, okay, hi, Mr. Al. I have a general question. Can someone go back to home country after getting a Canadian citizenship and passport through asylum or humanitarian considerations? So generally speaking, when the government of Canada provides you protection, it's based on the fact that if your life is in danger, most likely in your home country, and that's why they give you protection. And if they realize that you have no issues with your home country and you can now travel freely back to your home country, they could take away your protection. When you become a Canadian citizen, though, then it becomes very difficult for them to pursue that. The reason for that is that as a Canadian citizen, you have the right of movement. You can live anywhere in the world. They cannot easily take away these rights from you because they are protected under Charter of Rights. And that's why it's almost impossible for the government to pursue a person who is a Canadian citizen to take away their Canadian citizen. The only way that they can potentially do that is under Section 10 of the Citizenship Act, which basically says that if a person fraudulently obtained their permanent residence or their Canadian citizenship, then they can take away their citizenship. And that also needs to go through the court system. It means that the minister needs to file with the federal court, and then the federal court will look into that, see if the reasons the minister has given are plausible, and that's when you have to go through the process of federal court, and a judge will decide whether you can hold on to your Canadian citizenship or not. This is a very complex process for the government to go through if they want to claim that somebody who became a refugee at the time that they became a permanent resident or at the time that they became a Canadian citizen, they fraudulently said that they meet the requirements. So that's why I haven't heard of, I have heard rumors, and especially during the Harper government, I believe that they pursued some Canadian citizens, or at least I heard the rumors. I don't know whether they are true or not, but I don't have access to anything solid that says the government has ever actually tried or successfully managed to cancel the citizenship of a former refugee because they traveled back or lived in their original home country. That's what I can say. But again, if you want better idea about this, you can also talk to a citizenship lawyer. They deal with these cases all the time, and they can tell you the exact answer. Okay, so the next question is from Sunil Sachdeva. Sir, is it necessary to get the education documents validated by Wes and clear IELTS before applying for PR, or that can be done later? Please advise. Can one apply for job before getting education documents validated by Wes and IELTS test, or that's mandatory requirement before applying for job? Kindly advise. Okay, so Sunil, the first step is that for immigration to Canada, for most immigration options to Canada, if education is a requirement or language is a requirement, which for most of them, they are both requirements, the government expects you to get your education credentials validated in Canada, either by Wes or any of the other four organizations that are identified by the Canadian government. The same thing with the language test. You need to take at least one of the language tests, like IELTS or a TEF or TCF Canada or CELPIP, to show that you know English or French. One of the two languages is enough in most cases. And then based on that, you can apply. And so in other words, you take the test, you do the validation, then you submit your application. Of course, in certain situations, these are not requirements. So in other words, you don't really need to show English language test, or you don't need to validate your educational credentials, but those situations are rare. Majority of immigration options require upfront validation of your education credentials and also upfront IELTS test or a similar test. Some exceptions, for example, with federal self-employed class, you do not really need to take an English test. You can apply without an English test. However, if you don't take an English test, you won't receive the points. The In terms of work permit, though, or job offer, if you want to get a job in Canada, the job offer is based on the requirements of the employer, not the requirements of the federal government. So if the employer says you need to take an English test, then you have to take an English test. If they don't want to take you to take the English test, then you don't need to take the English test. The same thing is with your education credentials. If the employer requires that, then you have to do it. If the employer doesn't require it, then you don't need to do it. So getting a job offer is between you and the employer, not the government. But then later step after job offer is that you want to apply for a work permit or immigration. So if you're applying for immigration, as I mentioned, almost in all immigration options, you need to do those things. If it's work permit application, by default we don't need we don't need to do, for example, an English test for a work permit, or for example educational credentials. Having said that, you need to keep in mind that an immigration officer expects you to know English enough to do your job. They expect you to basically have the required education to do your job, and that's why on their own discretion they may require those documents from you. So it doesn't always happen, but sometimes it happens. And I'm just writing this down to share the link that I have posted an article about IELTS for work permit. You can read my article. I just posted the link here, but I will post the link below this video as well. You can read that article as well to understand what would be the expectation for a work permit. And I don't have good lighting here. Okay. A little bit better. Okay, so that's, I hope I answered your question. So the next one is JKY Raul or Yerul. Hello, sir. How are you? Sir, can we go for upfront medical since our application is under process for a student visa, or wait for the visa officer's advice? So usually speaking, upfront medical examination needs to be done before you submit your application, because if you go to a panel physician and show them your file number or your application number, then the first thing they ask you is an IME letter, or immigration medical exam letter, before they conduct the medical exam for you. So usually the upfront medical examination, as it is named, is before you submit the application. But if you have submitted your application and the officer have not reviewed your application, can you go through upfront medical examination and submit it? It's very likely you can. It is not customary though. And in those situations, maybe a better option is to wait for the officer to issue an IME letter and go through the medical examination. But I would say if you do the upfront medical examination and submit it, for example, through the web form, it is likely that they will accept it anyways, because it's being done by a panel physician, and it would save you some time. But remember that the immigration authorities have been silent about this. Okay, so either upfront medical examination or wait and receive an IME. So the next question is, hi sir, I still waiting for my PR card. How much time it takes? I got my ECOPR June 17th. So it's been 1 month. I would say call IRCC and follow up on that, why you haven't received it yet. But I recently have had some clients that it took them way more than a month to receive their PR cards. So you shouldn't be worried because it's been a month. But if you want to follow up, you can just call them. If you want to know their phone number, I actually have posted the IRCC phone number on our website. This is the link. I share it here. You can click the link to find their phone number. I can also read it for you. But this phone number is only available to people who are calling from inside Canada. If you're outside Canada, you cannot call this number. It's 1-888-242-2100. So that's the IRCC phone number, 1-888 242-2100. But you can only call them if you are inside Canada. And then when you call them, could take them forever to answer your questions, but you can give it a try. But for 1 month of delay, you could follow up, but don't worry, it's not a big deal. So the next question is from Dipshika. So my name is Dipshika Unitan, and I'm living in Delhi, looking to using the self-employed program as my husband is a musician and runs his own music production business. We have all the required doc to prove the same. So what I can tell you, Dipshika, is that the self-employed application process is one of the most complex application process that you can think of. Right now, we have a backlog of 8,999 people in this group. The government of Canada's target is to process 1,000 applications per year under the business immigration programs, which is a split between federal self-employed class and startup visa. So that, roughly speaking, it means that we expect a 10-year wait time for these program applications to be processed. In reality, many of these applications will be refused. So even if we say we have a 50% refusal rate, we still are looking at a 5-year wait time at this target rate. If they change their targets, if they change their policies, then we might see an expedited process. In fact, last year, this time, the processing time for self-employed as posted on IRCC website was 24 months. They recently increased it to 34 months. And I expect that they increase it more, as I mentioned, based on the current the way that they are processing and their targets. We probably expect a 5-year or more waiting time. But it's not just the waiting time. There are many ambiguities on their website, on the document checklist, and unfortunately, they are kind of allegedly misleading because people take it very lightly. The documents that the officers expect from you are not the documents that you see on the document checklist. I have, in 2018, I published a petition and asked the government to clarify their stance and be more straightforward with people. Unfortunately, they haven't done that before. We have actually a court case against the government right now as we speak, with more than 100 people joining that. So this is a very complex program. If you truly want to apply under this program and you believe that you qualify, I highly recommend that you work with a professional team that they understand this program. I have probably represented way easy more than 500 people under this program. I have extensive experience with this program. I've had clients from so many different countries in the world. If you are interested, you can get in touch with us. We can evaluate you. If you just open our assessment form on Settler website, I have multiple links here. You can click on any of those links, click the assessment form, pick the immigration for artists and athletes, fill out that form. We will get in touch with you. We see if you qualify in the first place or not. And then we will, if you do, and then we will recommend what would be the steps to take to try to expedite your process. For example, by getting a work permit upfront, come here, start working, and then apply for your self-employed class. These are the things that we do. But again, regardless of whether you're hiring or not hiring somebody, be careful with this program. It's a tough program. It's probably the toughest one. And I have multiple articles on my website about this program. And on the bottom of almost all of them, I have written this, that self-employed class is one of the toughest immigration options, if not the toughest. Okay, Shamil Ibrahim. Hi, I'm a regular viewer of you. Thank you very much, Shamil. Great job. Thank you. I'm from Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is not a SDS country, but consultants here makes it mandatory to have IELTS for a study permit. Please clarify. No, IELTS is not mandatory for a study permit. The only time that IELTS is mandatory for study permit is when you are applying under the STS program. Having said that, first of all, most schools they need IELTS test to give you admission. So without IELTS, your chances of getting admission from a school are close to none, unless you are doing ESL here in Canada. So that's why you definitely need to take some sort of English language test to convince the school to give you admission. Now, some of the schools, actually, most of them are more flexible than the government of Canada because the government only accepts IELTS and CELPIP for English tests. But those schools could accept Kyle, could accept their own test, they could accept Duolingo. So you are more flexible in terms of taking the different tests. For example, you could take Duolingo and then get admission. However, when it comes to the immigration authorities, they don't expect you to include your IELTS test results. But if you include any test other than IELTS or CELPIP, they won't accept them as language tests. I have an article about Duolingo, and you can read that article. Let me just write it down here to post the link under the video as well. But if you read the I go 2021 as well. And so if you read the article about Duolingo on my website, and I have actually a video about that as well, I have tried to explain what does it mean in terms of Duolingo, IELTS, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, what the consultants are suggesting to you is wise, although IELTS is not mandatory outside STS, but when you show that you, with official documents, that you actually know the English language well, then that will be a convincing document to the immigration authorities. Although it's not mandatory, but at the end of the day, when you show them that you know English, they are not worried that you could actually immigrate to, get study in Canada. So again, DIPS says how much time it takes. As I mentioned, right now they are saying 34 months, but with this processing system that they have built, it could take 5 years or more. And in the past, I've had, as I mentioned, hundreds of immigration applicants under a federal self-employed class. And I've had cases that they were processed. Among my successful cases, I had cases that they were processed under 6 months and cases that it took them over 50 months to process them. So unfortunately, the processing time with this program varies significantly, but currently they say 34 months, but I suspect that it will be way longer. And we have actually an article about that because through Access to Information and Privacy Act, we collected information from the government about the startup visa and self-employed class, and we analyzed those and we published them on our website. Okay, so the next question is from Oladapo. Sir, my wife is a registered nurse and I'm a welder. How can we get a job offer? So the simple answer is that you can't. I mean, generally speaking, an employer in Canada, they prefer to hire somebody who has valid status inside Canada. So either a permanent resident of Canada, a work permit holder, an international student, or a Canadian citizen. They rarely will go outside Canada to hire people, and partly because we have enough talent in Canada. Now you see that every year, now with the exception of the past year and a half, but generally speaking, for example, in 2019, we had 400 and roughly 6,000 in temporary foreign workers who started working in Canada. So you might say, if they hire from outside Canada, so how come we had so many people? Part of that, about three-quarter of those people, they were actually managed to get their work permits under international mobility programs. So many of those people, they were, for example, spouses of international students that they received this work permit, and not because they received a job offer, or they were refugees that they received work permits. But with those that they received work permits as with the help of a job offer, about 96,000, for example, we had with the LMIA base, 98,000 about LMIA base. Majority of them, again, they are basically agricultural workers that they come to Canada under the seasonal agricultural worker program, and that is an agreement between Canada and the Caribbean countries and Mexico. So in other words, the number of people who are outside Canada and they receive legitimate work permits inside Canada, and based on that they receive a work permit and they come to Canada and work, they are extremely limited. Unfortunately, the way that it is being promoted, people think that there are opportunities for them inside Canada. They aren't. And most of legitimate offers that are being made to people who are outside Canada to come to Canada and work are based on either it's a multinational company that has branches in Canada and another country. For example, you are working in their French branch and now they transfer you to Canada. So many of those people are being offered jobs like this inside Canada because of this. Or, for example, their family or friends, they have a business here in Canada and they prefer to hire their own family, and that's why they put efforts into that to hire their own family. Or in terms of the caregivers, they want a caregiver from outside Canada and they hire them, especially if that caregiver is from their own culture or a family or a friend. So other than that, the chances of getting a job offer in Canada are very slim. It could happen, it still happens, but rarely happens. You can go on search websites and do that. But whatever you do, if somebody tells you that they are going to charge you to find you a job offer, stay away from it, because when this happens, first of all, it is illegal to charge people to find jobs for them inside Canada. That's number one. Number two, or at least illegal in most jurisdictions in Canada. Number two is that if somebody charges you for a job offer, maybe you will come to Canada and you find out that that job doesn't even exist. So they get you the work permit, but when you come to Canada, the employer says, no, I'm not going to actually hire you and pay you money. The third thing is that you are taking advantage of our immigration system. And if the immigration authorities find out, there are consequences and you could become inadmissible to Canada. So in other words, in a scenario of paying money for job offer, it is likely that either the person who tries to come to Canada has been taken advantage of, or the government or the immigration law has been taken advantage of. And I don't like it. In fact, we are moving, so because we are members of a regulator called ICCRC, but the government has changed our regulator, and in the next couple of months we will move to the new regulator. And under the regulations of the new regulator, the immigration consultants are not allowed to offer job offer services. They are not allowed to offer recruitment services. That's because they just wanted to prevent abuses that are happening right now. But again, you can take a look at the job search websites, and you never know. It's very unlikely, but it rarely happens. So the next question is from Christopher Andrew. Good morning, sir. Watching your programs live from Africa. Oh, good morning from Uganda. That's amazing. Thank you very much, Christopher. I wish you the best. Okay, the next question is, should I learn French to increase my CRS points, as currently it is 438? So I recommend, and not just to you, to everybody, if you can learn French, and do it because of a few things. First of all, when you are a Francophone, you receive extra points. So when you include your TEF results, obviously it enhances your CR scores in two ways. Number one, on its own, because you have taken a language test, you receive points. Number two, if your test results are very good and you're considered a francophone, you could receive up to an extra 50 points under express entry. So in other words, you could receive suddenly 50 extra points plus another, for example, 30, 40 points for your language test results, and you suddenly see a hike of up to 80, 90, 100 points into your CRS score just because you have taken the French test. Obviously, your test results need to be good, but I mean, at the end of the day, knowing French will help your CRS score. Other than that, because we have a congestion of francophones in Quebec, and outside Quebec, francophones are rare. In fact, the population of francophone outside Quebec in Canada is less than 1 million. So there's a huge effort by the federal government and by provinces to encourage francophones to settle outside Quebec. And that's why many provinces, every now and again, they make special invitations to francophones to move to their province. The other thing is like in public policies that happen every now and again for immigration, and they include francophones. An example would be TR to PR pathway. If you are a francophone under TR to PR pathway, in fact, there is no cap. So now you can apply up until November 5th, 2021, if you qualify, of course, for other stuff. And even if you're an international student, we already have reached the cap for Anglophones, but for Francophones, it is still open, and you only need NCLC 5 or higher to apply. Of course, this is a TR to PR pathways for people who are already inside Canada, they are working in Canada. But what I'm trying to say is that the government tries to find options for francophones to encourage them to reside outside Quebec, because we need francophone population all over Canada, and that population has not spread evenly in Canada. So learning French, that will definitely help people to settle in Canada. It's not just for express entry; it could be other stuff. For example, we have a special code for working francophones in Canada. The program is called Francophone Mobility, and under Francophone Mobility, if you receive a job offer from an employer in Canada, you can get a work permit without an LMIA, which is huge. I've had clients under Francophone Mobility in the past, and that's an amazing opportunity for people to get a job offer in Canada. So knowing French will definitely help. Okay, so the next question is from okay, I hope I didn't miss anything. So the next question is from Akram Saleh. When will Canada open to European tourists? So Akram, this is what they said. They are right now, they are not open to tourists. But what they are going to do is that they are gradually going to open their borders to tourists. But you need to be fully vaccinated. And the vaccines that they request and they accept are vaccines that are approved inside Canada. And inside Canada, we have 4 vaccines. Three of them, they need double shots. One of them only needs 1 shot. The vaccines that are approved by Health Canada are Pfizer BioNTech, AstraZeneca, Moderna. So these are the ones that you need to take both shots to be considered fully vaccinated. After 2 weeks passing the second shot, then you are considered fully vaccinated. And the fourth one is Johnson and Johnson. So you need to keep in mind that you need to take those shots. But right now, as we speak today, even if you are fully vaccinated, you may not travel to Canada as a tourist. Okay, so this is not an option. However, the rumor says that by fall, they are enhancing their system for immigration and travel restrictions, and hopefully we will see that they will open the borders to tourists. So maybe if everything goes well in a couple of months. But again, these are just rumors. I'm not quite sure when they will exactly open the borders to tourists. Okay, so that's as far as I know. We had a quick message by Prime Minister of Canada that he clearly said that if you are not fully vaccinated, you will not be allowed to enter Canada as a tourist. So we know that. But in terms of other people who are fully vaccinated, when they will open the borders to them, we don't know yet. Okay, so this looks like to be the last question. I hope I didn't miss any questions. So the question is by Zaidi Abdul Odud. Another question related to the topic you brought up today. Can a resident of a country that is not one of the 14 do the SDI study permit? No, the answer is no. Unfortunately, SDS is only available to 14 countries. Having said that, keep in mind that SDS shows a healthy application process. So, in other words, if you are from another country, you will learn from SDS that the government expects you to show IELTS test, although it is not mandatory. So it's not mandatory. And we go back to our friend's question from Sri Lanka that says consultants require IELTS test. And I said, although the government does not require IELTS test, but it's a very good idea if you have your IELTS test results included and it's IELTS 6 or higher. It is a good idea if you pay the first year tuition fee so they know that you don't have any issues. It's a good idea if you purchase a GIC. It's a good idea if you have all necessary documents in place that SDS requires. But even if you put all those things in place and you are not a resident of any of those 14 countries, keep in mind, you need to be a resident of those countries, not a citizen. So, for example, if you are a Chinese citizen, but you're a resident of Germany, then you do not qualify for SDS. But if you are, for example, a Japanese citizen and you are a resident of India, then you qualify for this program. So keep that in mind. If you are not a resident of those 14 countries, then you may not apply under the SDS program. However, if you follow the steps of SDS, it's a healthy approach to study permit application, and your package becomes more convincing. Of course, don't take the importance of SOP or your study plan lightly, because that plays an important key in a study permit application. But again, SDS is only available to 14 countries, but the guidelines could also help us better prepare better application packages. Oh, three more questions showed up. So the next question is that, hello, sir, you missed my question. It's okay, sir. Please tell me when last year Express Entry Application FSW will process according to GCMS notes. Every stages are passed. Please predict, sir. So Gurpreet, I wish I could predict. I can't, because the visa offices in India, they're currently not working properly. I mean, we have many applications that are stuck in New Delhi and other visa offices in India. Unfortunately, we don't know when they will start processing those applications. And because of that, there is a backlog, actually, a huge backlog, and there will be some delays in terms of processing the applications. So generally speaking, they promote that express entry applications will be processed under 6 months, but that's not quite true. The reason that about 80% of express entry applications are being processed under 6 months is that if they find out that they can refuse an application, they will quickly refuse that application within the next first few weeks of submission, and that's how they bring down the average. In reality, majority of express entry applications I shouldn't say majority, but many of express entry applications are processed between 1 year and 1.5 years. And this was even before COVID-19. Now, after COVID-19, unfortunately, you should expect more delay. So I would suspect that majority of express entry applications, whether federal skilled worker program, federal skilled trades, or Canadian experience class, they will be processed after 1 year, and some of them will be even processed after 18 months. So again, I cannot predict, but from what I'm seeing, there will be significant delays. So the next question is from Remo Anuluam. Sir, my updates for other pending applications for PR. Is there any possibilities the PR process will take longer, more than 2 years, especially Atlantic Pilot? Yes, there is, unfortunately, because again, the CIO Central Intake Office in Sydney, Nova Scotia, they are very slow. We have actually some applications that we submitted in March and March of last year, and they have not even received their file number. They have just issued a temporary file number, but not an actual file number. And an actual file number, it means that your application has entered the system. So they are very slow. If we are just waiting more than a year, actually in some cases 15 months or more, just for a file number, think about the processing time. So yes, there is a possibility that it goes beyond 2 years. Also keep in mind that your personal circumstances also play a role, because sometimes the background check takes a longer time and those kind of things. So yeah, there is a chance that unfortunately the processing time goes beyond 2 years. As I mentioned, for example, for my federal self-employed class applicants, I've had cases anywhere between 6 months to 50 plus months. So 50 months means more than 4 years of waiting time for being processed. In terms of, for example, spousal sponsorship applications, I've had cases from anywhere between 3 months to 22 months. So I've had, in fact, a spousal immigration application that it took them 22 months, almost 2 years, to process that application. In terms of other kinds of applications, express entry. For express entry, I've had cases anywhere between 5 months to or 4 months up to about 1.5 years for them to process the express entry application. So don't count on the numbers that they post on their website. Don't count on predictions by anybody. What I always suggest to everybody is that when you submit your permanent resident application, just continue with your normal life as much as possible and try to forget about your immigration application. They will eventually process your application, but when and how, unfortunately, it's not predictable. Also, keep in mind that when they issue your COPR, confirmation of permanent residence, and your visa, they usually give you enough time. And most people receive anywhere between 6 months to sometimes 1 year to enter Canada. And that gives you plenty of time to make arrangements and enter Canada and start living in Canada. Even if they give you less time, you can just quickly come to Canada, check in, become a permanent resident, go back to your home country, wind down everything in your home country, and then permanently move to Canada. So generally speaking, they are very flexible when it comes to the actual moving part. So just live your life, and hopefully you will receive the good news someday. And then at that time, you can move to Canada. So we have 2 minutes left, two more questions. So question number one is from Deepshika. How many points is required to qualify in Saskatchewan? So Saskatchewan has different kind of options. We actually post the lowest scores on each of those. Of course, the minimum requirements, for example, minimum points for OID is 60 points. But with 60 points, you will go nowhere. For example, the last round that they had, the lowest score was 85. But sometimes they go as low as even 69. And with With other options, usually for some reason they stick with number 82. So usually if you're 82 or higher, they will select you. But we post the updates about Saskatchewan on our website, settler.ca. You can follow our website, and whenever they actually show you the post, you can basically you can see what are the points. There is as I mentioned, there is a cutoff, but that cutoff is far below the actual competition. You need to look at the actual competition. You need to be 80 points or higher with Saskatchewan. Usually less than 80 points, you don't have that much of a luck. Although there has been instances. Okay, so the last question is by Joseph, St. Louis. How do I apply for Kusma as an American visitor in Canada? So Kusma, Joseph, comes with under different options. For example, like investors and traders, like intra-company transferee, and professionals. And it depends which one they are, because, for example, with the professionals option, or intercompany transfer, you actually need to have a job offer in Canada to do that, to work in Canada. So what I suggest to you, I have a very broad article about Kusma, or you're an American, you should call it USMCA. So it's funny because Kusma, which is NAFTA 2.0, is now named three different names by three different countries. So in Canada, we call it Kusma, or Canada, US, Mexico agreement. In the United States, they call it USMCA, and in Mexico, they call it T-MEC. So depending on where you are from, it's different. I have a very brief introduction, but on its own, it's a detailed article about Kusma. I just posted the link. You can click that link. I will also post the link below this video when I'm done. You can read that article as well. It gives you more information about different options that they do exist. You can also, based on your circumstances, if you're interested, you can book a consultation session with me. I can review your situation and tell you whether any of the options under Kusma will apply to you, or how you can move forward to make this happen. Okay, thank you very much for attending this live session. As a reminder, I run live sessions every Sunday at 10 a.m. Toronto time, which is the Eastern Standard Time. My name is Al Parsai. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I'm the author of this book, 88 Tips on Immigration to Canada, which has been identified by Amazon.ca in the past as the bestseller book under the immigration law. I hold a Master of Laws from York University, which is one of the best law schools in Canada. I teach immigration consulting at Ashton College and Global School of Corporate Excellence. Some of the courses that I teach, my students are actually other immigration consultants and lawyers. And I've actually have probably around 300 to 400, or maybe even more, of the immigration consultants out there. They have been my students. I have more than 10 years of experience as an immigration consultant. You can visit our website, settler.ca. Please subscribe to our channel, enable notifications, be in touch, ask your questions. And again, thank you very much for attending this session. See you next week.